This is how you pour tea.
We're spilling all the tea today, honey.
Can we say that?
That's fun.
Okay.
Well, we're back.
Yeah, okay. Hey everybody,
Hello.
and let's talk about where we are. We never did explain because this isn't my house where we normally do this at.
Is it not?
My tiny little itty bitty teensy weensy
Yeah,
little
it was a fabulous theater. This is Shenanigans Comedy.
Yeah.
Is it comedy bar or comedy?
Comedy theater.
Theater. I'm
But
gonna
it's
say bar.
R-E. It's T-H-E-A-T-R-E. I wish I had a little apostrophe. So it'd
Yeah.
be French.
It's a great venue.
That would have made it completely different from me.
Right. So, but the idea for us being here, I think, is because we want to open this up to an open audience. We want to be a lot
Right.
more people, like something that we could never do in my teensy little itty bitsy house that we used to do it in.
Your house really came in the most handy of any place we've ever shot, though, you know? Because we did it at Partners and the sound was never right, because they were playing music, you know? There was
And we know our sound has always been off, and we really tried this time. I bought new equipment, and not
we
everything
just
worked.
appreciate y'all know we're workout fatigues
We're
still,
trying.
you know?
It's not without effort.
At all.
Or money spent.
At all.
Yeah, right. So
They're great. They're a nonprofit.
Yeah, nonprofit.
Shenanigans,
and they,
yeah.
And they do a lot to help the LGBT youth around here.
Right.
And
Didn't they recently have a show for the youth here?
I think so.
Or is it
I think they
coming
had a maybe that might be this weekend, the drag show, youth drag show.
I think so.
I think the entire community is out of the loop about things
It's
that's
so
going
hard
on.
because we don't have a communal space, and I it's this weird thing when marriage equality happened, and the places became a little bit more safe for us. Like we kind of lost those
Dispersed.
spaces. There's only 21 lesbian bars in the entire country.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, man, I should open a lesbian bar, but then I would want everybody there. You know, and I couldn't be like, gay boys, get out. You know what I mean?
I'll put enough of you in there, they'll stay out. I'm just joking, I had to say that.
And then I was like, how are we actually going to get lesbians to go out to the bar? Because we're not a lot of us are not super party people. And I was like, maybe a used bookstore / coffee shop, you know?
With some power tools in the back.
Right, yeah. Show some, tutorials or something. But
Right.
I feel like it's been such a hard thing then for Huntsville. You know, our population around including Madison is over 300,000 now. We've surpassed Birmingham as the largest city in Alabama, and we're still in the South, but there's a lot. This place is a lot more progressive than other parts of Alabama, but we don't have a space, which is just man, I'm gonna have to do
And I think
it.
Tea Time is open to being at least a clearinghouse for that,
Yeah,
don't you
most
think?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this stuff really does help.
Mhm.
We need local aspects, and this venue, is
I'm so
that as
thankful
well.
that she had this for us to be able to
Yeah,
use
and so
today.
we're planning on having a lot more things and having shows, and we're probably going to charge admission because we need some dollar bills, yo.
We gotta be sponsored. We can't survive without cash flow.
Well, we just
Somewhat,
want,
you know?
Well, it's not even so much that; it's that
dude.
people don't engage unless they put something in. You know, if something's free, it's so easy to discount it, right?
And then not show up.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But if you put some of your own skin in, to me, it's more about
I
that,
gotcha.
right?
Mhm.
Because I'm a child of God. God adores me and just pours all kinds of abundance to me. So if I want to do something, I have the faith muscle where it's done. But I want other people involved too, right?
Right.
Because I want them to have their skin in the game as well, and for it to be important to them. Because that's what I get fed off of. You know what I mean? Is that energy you get from other people wanting to do things in a combined effort. I don't want it all to be the Pete Show, even though I don't ever hardly shut up. I do. I find myself talking.
I love it because I'm in more of the state of mind where I listen more now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I got lots to say. I have lots of words.
Go right ahead. I have master tuning out too.
I love that.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, I get your.
So I've got a friend that her name is Jennifer Sutton, and she made these cards because if you watch Tea Time, you know that Pete loves to pull out his crazy cards and
Right.
ask these questions. I've never worked with these before, but it basically asks you kind of a what if question. So I'd like for each one of us to pull one and then just kind of read it and then talk about what it means to them. Who would you want, Lauren or Ashe? I'm sorry, would you like to go first?
Sure.
And you pick anyone you want.
What if I stepped back far enough to see the big picture? That's terrifying. I mean, the pandemic has caused a large amount of existential dread. And I had this weird side effect happen that, like, when my life really kind of started a few years ago, and I really kind of, all of a sudden I felt differently, and I realized I wanted to live, and I wanted to live a long time. And I was like 31 at the time, and I just remember thinking before, I'm not gonna make it. Like, I believed that eventually my life would end by my own hands. And then I didn't feel that way anymore, and then I was like, oh crap, I only got like 50 years left. Probably less.
You got about 4 summers left.
Like, now I'm like, it's weird, yeah, it shift from like being afraid of living to being afraid of dying. And so then I'm just like, I've thought about this so much, like, what is the big picture? And then I just realized, for me, at this point in time, it doesn't matter. I think that we are here. I don't care how we got here, but I think we are here to love one another and to make art.
Ooh.
I think that encompasses everything. Any way that we can love each other and any way that we can make art.
I love that.
All the other stuff is just functions of society.
She is so deep. I love this.
No, it's a good thing I'm not deep anymore. You know, it's like. No, I mean, like. Well, I'm talking about I'm that way too, to a degree now. But I used to be just like you. That's a great thing, really, because for me it was like I talk too much. That was always my thing. I'm like puppet show going all the time, you know. So I had to just listen. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, I'm not forcing a thing.
I love that. I love it.
And what got me over that wall, I meant to say this earlier, but when the day that I confronted my abuser, which for no reason it's been this year, then I also confronted, I told my mom, about my dad and my cousin, and it blew our household apart. Because everything had been swept under the rug, like we always do. My dad was a deacon of the church, my mom was a secretary, and there I was, you know, forcing my way through things, you know. But it was just so incredible how you became the person that healed instantly once you let go. When I said that, I said it, I was crying, I left because they didn't want to hear that. So I had to go somewhere where they would, you know. So Heath was that person for me. Can you come get me? Yeah. So, and I stayed gone for 5 days and come back, and I was like, we're ready to have a conversation now, aren't we? You
He's
know?
always been such a good friend for you.
Yes, always.
Amazing. You want to pick a card?
I'm just joking.
Okay, what's yours?
Yeah, I know. I do want to.
We are big on consent here.
Let's see. Nothing's forced. What would my life look like if I focus on things that make me feel grateful? It's exactly what I'm doing.
Your life is changing?
I mean, it's changing. It has changed so much. I now see who I am. I know I can't really make you understand it, or I want you to understand, but I don't. It's just me, you know, and that's what the battle's been for 48 years, you know, to try to figure out how I was going to get through it instead of surviving in it. you know, and it's a big difference. And the biggest lesson I learned was comparison kills gratitude.
Oh, yep.
Remember Jacob told us about that
Mm-hmm.
on the show when he was on it, and it does. And I caught myself putting it out there to maybe, you know, maybe change how I was comparing myself to other people. You know?
Unless you're putting yourself up higher. And then you're like, man, I've got so much more than these other people. Goodness, I've got like my stuff together. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
But sometimes I will do that now because I used to like the opposite way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, now I'll be like, oh, I'm really grateful that I'm in this spot. I see this other person struggling in theirs, and I just root for them. You know, you know. So I get what you're saying about like finding like yourself, and I think that's a continual process
So
throughout our whole lives.
it's always going to be that
But
way.
like this is like for me like the first time I'm really starting to figure out the core of myself and to be strong in it and love it, you know. So it's cool. It's cool to be in the presence of other people and experience the same thing.
It's really uplifting, and the most freedom I ever received was when that happened to me, you know. And it didn't happen overnight. I wrestled. I was laying in my bed, and I was just thinking, first mistake. But I had this overwhelming feeling come across me as if I was floating. And I thought that I was about to die. I thought I was just accepting the fact that I'm going, because that's how I felt. It was so real. But when I woke up, I realized that was the lesson for me I was letting go. That's what I got out of it. Gosh, it's hard to let go of so many years of everything that you wouldn't wish on your worst nightmare, you know, or your worst. It just
Because
worst
it's
enemy.
unknown.
Do you
It's
feel
the
like
known, right?
like when that kind of those decisions happen? I don't know if it feels like this for anybody else, but like it's like you decide it before you're on board with it. You know, you get that feeling, and you're just like, it's kind of like when I was like, you're gonna do stand-up comedy, and I'm like, I am. You know, okay, it's like like you know, I had to like recently had to be like, I have to let go of this longing to be there for my ex-wife in a capacity that I can't, you know, like to that friendship or whatever, and it was terrifying to be like let that go or whatever. But then like this part of me is just like come over me and is like, oh, you have to do this, you know. And then I don't know if that was what that was like when you had to go confront them. Like did it?
It probably felt like that a lot along the way.
Okay.
You know, because I always wanted to be able to tell my truth. But I covered it up so well that I didn't want people to know that wasn't who I was internally, you know, and just inside. And I was like, you know, it's like all this started clicking. And when it was like a click, it started getting faster, faster, and faster. Meaning, I just sit and wait. I'm not scared of death. I used to be terrified of death. You know, I don't know if that's a topic for a lot of people, but death was always confusing for me. Because
It's something we all have to face.
yeah, and it's part of life, isn't it?
I'm at the fear part.
Do what?
I'm at the fear part. I'll get there.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is, I tried to figure out what happens when we die. The big questions. And the reason I never had the answers is because I was kicked out of church at 16. So because I was wearing female pants. But after that, I don't know, things just started, I started allowing.
And I think we're going to get into those topics of what we all think, and that's going to be really fascinating.
It is going to be, because mine's changed a lot.
Ooh, I can't wait. Shall I read mine?
Yes.
Okay, so... what if asking a new question could lead to a whole realm of solutions and possibilities? And that's something so for me, I've got to the point of where I don't really care about the answers. I want better quality questions.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I want better quality questions. That's really what the answers have almost become irrelevant to me.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Because it's like I no longer, certainty is boring. Certitude? It never got me anything.
There's really more certainty in the questions than the answers.
Oh my God. Truth Bob. Love that.
Oh my goodness! We're about to start putting those on a tree back here.
I know, right? Where are my pearls?
Yes.
I could totally do like next to a live, laugh, love poster. You
Right.
know, like just kidding. Joanna Gaines would be like, yeah, I got your stuff. No.
Yeah.
No, but it is like kind of true, you know?
Yeah.
I had like a teacher when I was like in third grade, and she was like, what is the biggest question, like the most asked question that we'll never know, and it's why.
Oh.
You know, and I was like, oh God, you know, I was going through some stuff she didn't know about, so maybe that wasn't like the best thing to say to 9-year-old me, but like it really stuck with me, and so like I think that's cool. The questions are more important than the answers.
Yeah.
Because it's what are we searching for at our core, and that tells us what we need.
Oh, I love that.
Do you know the answer? Knowing, like, underneath all that, do you feel like you might know the answer when you ask the question?
Absolutely. As soon as I ask the question, I
Yeah.
always get an answer. If I'm willing,
It's-
willing to ask the question and stand, like you said,
Mhm.
listen, right?
Right.
Listen for it. I did want to say I do have a few extra of these decks of cards. So what should we have people do to win a free deck of cards?
Well, we need some questions, don't we?
Yeah, maybe we'll post some questions on the Facebook page, and then we'll pick somebody to actually win.
Can we pick somebody from the survey to win?
Sure. So I'll
we tie that in.
Yeah, I'll put a question. I'll put a copy of the survey, so we
Yeah.
want people to answer the survey for us, so we know how to better serve. Right.
Yeah, because we don't know if they don't tell us.
Right. We know better, we'll do better.
That's right.
So currently, I'm going for a master's in religious studies because we've kind of been touching on spirituality and that kind of stuff. And everybody, you always call me your magical friend. And everybody probably knows that I work with the angelic world. They're like, oh my God, he is such a freak. And dead people talk to me. They don't really listen that much because their goals are not necessarily our goals. I'm like, yeah, shut up. But anyway.
By the way, you didn't confuse me.
No, okay. But it's really interesting to me because right now in the course we're working on the historical Jesus versus the biblical Jesus, and when you get into the actual scholarly work of it, it's amazing how anybody that went through Bible school could still keep any faith.
Right.
It's crazy because I mean, if you look at like there's like 5,850 pieces of separate text. Each one has a variant, and that's what makes our New Testament, right? So I mean, think about all this stuff and all the things that have been discovered with the with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Naga. I'm going to say it wrong. The Naga something. There's another set of scrolls that has been found, codexes that say completely different things. And when you really start studying, there's like entire books that are not in the Bible. And then when you actually go back to the original text, so I'm also being taught Greek and Hebrew so that I can go back to the original because I want to know what that says. Like I don't want to know this translation because Jesus actually spoke in Aramaic. I don't know if you know that, but Jesus actually spoke. And Jesus wasn't even his name, by the way. He would have been called Yeshua.
And he wasn't born in December either.
No. See, so I mean, the whole reason that was done was because it played along the idea of the pagan religions that were already in place. So they were just trying to replace it. So to me, when you start really looking at it and you see the different time frames, what interests me are those time frames where it changed, where it split, where these ideas were made. And if you look at every single one of them, what's behind it is the idea of power, the idea of some institution or human having power over the people and being the directive of what God said, right? But what's interesting for me is as the concept and the idea and possibly even the possibility that Jesus even existed is stripped away, my spirituality and my connection with God and even Jesus and the Christ consciousness is growing. Because especially for the LGBTQIA, we've all seen the Jesus hates fags sign. You know what I mean? So I mean there's all this energy packed into that name, right? That as soon as you strip that away, it's like, oh, now I see. Or I can start to see, or I can start to have a loving relationship instead of one where I feel guilt and shame because I put him up on the cross because we were horrible people. And I'm just going to be right out there. There's a lot of God in the New Testament, or the Old Testament, even the New Testament, where he's a real ass. I mean, just a real ass. I mean, like, so let's talk about even like the abortion issue. God killed a lot of babies in the Old Testament. A lot of babies. So where does that, like, if you really get into it, and why was Eve in trouble? Because she wanted to know more. Well, guess who put the yearning for wanting to know more in her? God did. And then he's like, but don't eat from, it's like, there's so much baloney, right? At the end of the day, and that's why what's really important to me is for you to, I think I talked about this earlier about making these ideas, these core values for you. And part of me, those core values of what does my spirituality mean to me, and it has to be empowering. It has to be authentic. It has to bring joy. Or for me, it's not my truth. And I'm willing to say that my truth is my truth, and your truth is your truth, and they're both true.
Yeah, because we believe
they're both true. Yeah. So when I hear somebody else talking about that your truth isn't right, well, guess what? There's all kinds of things of like the speck in my eye versus the timber in yours, and the he without sin shall be the first to cast the stone, and you shall not judge. Well, it sure sounds judgy to me when somebody's over there saying, hey, you're not living right. Well, that's not your responsibility. That's between me and God.
I like to tell those people that they're making their God look like an idiot, and shame on them.
Right?
Because that just puts it in a different perspective,
And how does that pull anybody towards God?
I think the main reason people get so stringent on it is this deep human desire just to know that we're good. And if you already kind of fit within the confines, if you're like a straight guy, of course, like a patriarchal religion where you're kind of the master of your own domain is going to just really fit your idea, I think I've had, during the pandemic, I've done a little bit of deconstruction in my head because Christianity put like my idea of what God would be into such a small box, and then I realized kind of in some ways how blasphemous it is to not think in a wider aspect. Like it occurred to me, like you're talking about how like God gave free will to Eve. So if God created everything, like that is like the belief, that is what I was raised with. I don't know if we all raised, God created everything. Everything.
Right.
So even larger concepts. So God created bad too.
Exactly.
And I think like there's a lot of people out there that are worshiping the bad parts of God, the smiter, the judger, the angry, the person that loses their cool, and it's because they don't want the heat on them. They don't want to sit there and actually have to think. I think that's where
if I make you the bad guy, then that makes me in relation to
they don't look bad at all.
Right.
And they don't have to do the work. You don't have to do the work of thinking. It's like parents. Like I used to spank my kid when he was younger, and then I hit this point where I was just like, why am I doing that? Like what am I getting from it? What is he getting from it? Like this is how things have happened. How do I control his behavior to protect him? Like you have to think outside of a box in a way that made me uncomfortable and held me accountable. And I don't think people often feel comfortable enough to hold themselves accountable for their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions. So I do. I think that a lot of people have those beliefs because it's comfortable. And I've seen a lot of TikToks of atheists that went to be a minister, and after they just said the year and a half, 2 years, they were just like, there's no way I can believe this in this stringent, at least. Even for some of them, I even know people who like believe in God and they're pastors and stuff, but they can't believe it in the stringent idea that they were told.
Yeah.
Because apparently, like in the Torah, the first words of the Bible are not in the beginning; it's in a beginning. That one little
Right.
word, it
And
changes
that's-
everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And that's why I'm going back and learning the Hebrew and the Greek and all that, because I want to know exactly what it is. Because, we can even get like the clobber passages, you know what I mean, about in Leviticus. I forget the word, but the word, for one thing, the word homosexual did not appear in the Bible till 1946.
Well, it
That's
didn't
a
exist
long-
until the 1800s.
Well, that's true. But what was coming off of this word, that if you go back to the original Greek, it was talking about men who would take young boys as concubines, as lovers, right? Almost probably against their will, some of them, right? And so I think that's why there's been so much pedophilia that's been attached to homosexuality. It's almost like they had to make that work, to make that system work, right? So, but if you go back to that word, it doesn't actually mean what it's been, portrayed to mean. And I love to trigger people. So I've done this really, like this deep thought process, even about the idea of Lucifer and the devil. Because for me, you talked about God created everything, right? But we don't know where we are unless we have something in relationship to us.
Right.
Right? So, and we don't know where the light isn't until we know where the dark is. So just imagine this eternal being in heaven who allowed himself for eternity to become this person who explores our dark so that we know what needs light.
I get what you're saying.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That's very
So is he
interesting.
really that bad of a person?
Yeah.
Or
no, that's-
entity or being or whatever? I mean, I'm just asking the question.
Right, yeah.
And
Because
it's a
if it
good
wasn't
point.
for him,
And that's a beautiful point too, where the question is almost more important than the answer.
yeah.
And it's like when Lil Nas X did his that Montero video, and people were furious, and I was like, the irony of these Christian people being mad that because I know you've seen the video. Have you seen the video?
I've seen parts of his videos.
Well, he's being judged among the council, and just everybody looks like him. They're just wearing a different color. So it's like, there's really not room to judge. And then he is being risen up to heaven, and he grabs a stripper pole and slides down and goes to hell, dances on the devil, and then kills him. And I'm just like, so what you're telling me, the Christians are mad that Lil Nas X was headed to heaven, sacrificed himself to go to hell, and kill the devil? Like the whole perspective, because people just want to believe. And then I just thought, what would at least the Bible thumping evangelical Christians, I think they would be terrified to lose the devil. I think if you said Satan's been eradicated, we all just have good now in the world, they would freak out. Where's, like you said, where's the guide now? Where's the line? How do I know how to be kind to another person, or what I'm supposed to do?
Oh, I love
I like that too.
that. So you had kind of alluded to, you've had some.
Well, I don't. Of course, I'm more spiritual. I was raised Baptist.
God help you.
Yes, I know. And it was a nightmare in itself. But at the time, I thought it was the way I had to go. And up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I still thought that way. Now I'm just like, for me, I believe there's a God. I believe that there was a God in the Bible that was the miracle healer. He was the one, if you just touched the hem of his garment, he would heal you. And I think people in general have that power. You know what I mean? But you have to be so aligned with things that nothing can disrupt your ability to heal.
I have seen and experienced, and I don't want to say I've done, but things have been done through me that I can't explain in any other way besides that there is a power that is possible for us to be a channel for. And whether that's Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Allah,
Or all the
who
above.
cares?
Yeah,
Who cares?
Right.
And one thing I always kind of, I love these certain scriptures in the Bible, and the reason I go with the Bible is not that I'm not a Bible thumper, but it's been a very important document that has been used as weaponized, really. You know what I mean? But Jesus said in there, he said that we would do far greater things than him. So where are these Bible thumpers who are out there doing far greater things than Jesus, who fed 5,000 people at least twice, I think 3 times actually, depends on which text you read, raised people from the dead, healed the sick, did all these amazing miracles? Why? Where? You're going to do far greater things. Let's do this.
And they almost would treat it as blasphemous to say that you want to be greater than Jesus.
Yeah, people would.
You know,
That's
that would
there.
be, like, and it's, yeah, I think in my spiritual process, I had to when I got to the point where I didn't necessarily believe like the story of God or the story of Jesus or whatever, I thought about my great grandmother. She had like this warmness about her, and this kind of laughter and stuff. And because I was thinking about her, I was 23 at the time. My kid was like 2 years old, and he turned and he looked, and there was just something so distinctively about him that was her. And I remember thinking, that's like, I didn't even birth my baby. You know what I mean? I didn't birth my baby. My ex-wife did, and I thought, oh, like that's that thing. Like, what if this whole concept of Jesus is really the oneness, the goodness within all of us that we, choose whether we carry on? Because that's kind of like, I'm freaking out about death, because of the pandemic. But there's this part of me that's just like, if I don't do anything big in the world, will my love be enough to carry through? So like I like the concept. I like some of those spiritual concepts, but I've had to very much deconstruct them to make them palatable.
Yeah, and I think what you're really talking about is the Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
Which you can separate from the Jesus.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Because if you really, really read a lot of scriptures, it doesn't even really talk about Jesus. It talks about Christ or the Christ. Well, that's not necessarily. It's just been placed upon Yeshua.
And it's funny that you said that, where you said there were times where he was, kind of an asshole and stuff. I went with my wife to their, it's a very good organization, the Community Table. They're fantastic. Their preacher is trans-friendly, queer-friendly, affirming, 100%. And we would sit in these conversations and have conversations, and I'm first time I go in there, I'm like sweating, and I'm just like, oh God, I'm freaking out because I've had so much trauma in the church. And then we were talking about something, and we were reading something, and I was like, it seems like Jesus is kind of being a jerk right now in this scripture. And the room got real quiet. And the preacher looked at me, and she goes, yeah. And it was like the first time that I had not been like slapped down for even just questioning that like things might be differently, or that this just like whole concept of God in this perfection and Jesus imperfection and stuff. Because like from the time I was little, I remember being like, the story of like Jesus being 12 and his parents couldn't find him, and it turned out he was preaching on the steps. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, if I did that, my parents would definitely say it was a sin. So it's sin, like understanding that sin is subjective, and but you can't bring that stuff up. You can't, I was raised in the Nazarene, and occasionally going to a Baptist church. So I was point blank told, questioning is a sin.
You don't question God.
Yeah, shame on you.
Wow.
God makes you perfect, so put on this dress, and I'm just like,
Well, they tell me that, and I put it on.
Yeah. Right. But
okay.
Yeah, I find it so interesting, and I feel lucky enough to be on the other side to where I'm able to work through that journey. It's so cool. Because, we actually met at the Unitarian Universalist Church, you and I did. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I thought was amazing about that church was, somebody could walk in and be like, I believe I'm a 3,000-year-old dragon, and I've been sent here, to make shoes. And at the UU church, they'll go, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me more. There's not this look of judgment on your face. You're not expected to leave there a Christian or anything like that, even though the UU church does have its basis, where it started out was Christian. But like that kind of freedom and acceptance, like blanket acceptance of somebody's own truth, just has a lot of power.
And I think that's what we're really trying to do here, is not necessarily shove anything down anybody's throat,
Right.
but just kind of open our minds,
yes,
open
open
your
up.
minds to that there are other possibilities.
Right.
You know, because if you are still like being plagued by the Bible, then go take a look at what the actual original part of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are.
It would be nice to have almost like a, and I've heard of some possible things in the works, but having an organization almost do a healing process for this, where there's no expectations at the end of this except for you to be able to process the pain that was brought on.
Ooh, retreat. And I had so I'm glad you brought that, because I was kind of thinking that at some point maybe we could have like a little bit of a call-in show or something of that nature, where we kind of work with somebody. Not that we're experts, but we can at least
Offer what we
offer,
our
or
experience.
we could just offer our presence, right? So I love that you're retreat. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm even on the board of directors of a retreat center. Just saying.
Have you ever been to a sweat lodge?
No, never
I
have.
haven't either. I want to.
Do you really?
Yeah, I don't. I do.
See, I don't think I want to do that. I don't really want to do ayahuasca. I'm not. There's lots of things I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get why you would say that. You know, for me, it's been something I want. I have a friend that goes.
I've been in a hot tub.
And then the
I've been
ayahuasca,
in
is
the
that
sauna.
the ayahuasca, that's like a hallucinogen kind of.
You're right. Yeah.
So it'd be like, oh yeah, I probably would try that.
Would you?
Yeah. Just
And that's
'cause
okay.
In a safe environment, I probably would give that a shot, because I know. I can't believe I'm going to talk about this on screen. Like the cops are not going to come get me. But I tried shrooms a few years ago, and it was a very small dose. And I was sitting there with like a friend of mine and her boyfriend, who's also my friend, and I was playing Ratchet and Clank on the PS4, and I looked back and I thought, I don't want to wear a shirt right now. And I took it off, and then I was sitting there, and I'm like in my head, and it's like I started having this conversation with like a deeper consciousness part of myself, and I was like, hey, just a quick question, why do you talk down to yourself so often? And I was like, I don't know. They're like, what purpose does that serve? And I was like, it doesn't. And I was like, well, can you stop?
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I can stop. I can work to stop doing that. You know, like, but it was, you know, like the people say it's this life-changing thing, and I know like it seems like such a big thing, but that little honesty and conversation with myself about something I didn't want to talk about, but you feel safe because you're not feeling all the anxiety and stuff along with it. So I would totally try that.
And so you're bringing that up. I think I've always talked about this before, about how I think the LGBTQIA brain is specially tuned for spirituality, because we've always had to live in two spaces at once.
Oh.
You know, we had to live here, but we've also been here. Like, you know, like we've had to like, how do I present? How do I speak? How do I dress? How do I act? Right?
Almost as some form of neurodivergence.
Yeah, exactly. So we've created our brains to do that, so we can think outside the box very easily. And I think that gives us a special tuning to be able to touch base with other consciousnesses. And I guess the reason I don't know that I would really want to try ayahuasca is because I've just experienced so many weird things. I'm like, I'm pretty good right now.
You're like, I don't know what would happen.
I really don't, because it's like that's the crazy thing about the spiritual journey, there really are no filters, and there really are the only boundaries there are the ones you make yourself, but if you don't know to make them beforehand, not necessarily.
There's also like this fear like of how fragile your mind is.
Yeah.
That like, what if I push it a little too far, or I have too much understanding in this particular thing, and it kind of messes with my
What if
stability.
I see too far behind the curtain?
Right. Yeah. Like I had I had an edible once, and then I understand why the color blue is blue. We talked about it, and me and the color blue had a conversation about it, and I was like, I am never doing this again because I understand this on a deep level, but I can't verbalize it, and no one will understand me. You know,
Yeah.
there's a weird boundary with that. Is there a particular reason why you want to do the sweat lodge or the ayahuasca?
I want to do the sweat lodge because of the things I've heard from her, cleansing, but it's hot. That's the one.
Who's her?
Lauren Wilburn.
Okay.
She's goes all the time.
Okay.
But I just want to experience it.
I hear it can have. Depending on like where your headspace is at, and you can have a very strong reaction to like trauma coming up. That's the part that would kind of scare me. But in some ways, like, you know, if you've had to bury that stuff so deep sometimes, I'm like, maybe it'd be worth it to have a little bit of a brain break, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about shrooms, I know people who microdose, and it's just unbelievable how different they are because they're not as anxious, their stress level's gone.
And there are other ways, like, I don't know if anybody's heard of emotional freedom technique. There are other ways to kind of, it's called tapping. Some people call it tapping.
Oh, is it like? Yes.
Yeah.
That
Lauren
sounds
does
like
that
work.
all the
Yeah. So there's ways to do, like, I've done things like that like, I remember one time I did it and I just was like doing this like guttural scream. I was like, who's screaming? I'm like, oh, it's me. You know what I mean? So there are other ways to do that. We're not necessarily condoning anybody doing anything. Do it at your own.
There are these like different things that like kind of put you on a different wavelength, like music.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah.
anytime I have a mental breakdown, there's almost always Lana Del Rey playing very loudly. You know, and I'm like got my hand on the speaker, but there's like a frequency that's like connecting to a frequency in my body that is like
that vibration.
that is pulling the feelings out of me without me having to do the work and have to deal with the fear.
So the
of it.
Egyptians actually had healing sound chambers.
Ooh.
Where they would
They were
actually,
brilliant.
they would like play these tones, and I don't know if anybody's ever heard of solfeggio frequencies, but they were these sacred frequencies that until like the 14th or 15th century, only certain people were allowed to play it. So our harmonies have been changed. Like we are not on the solfeggio frequency harmonies today because of that, and it's the idea of that it puts you into these certain. For some people, I do a little bit, that it connects with certain chakras and it releases different types of things. And there's also another one called Binaural Beats, and it's this very interesting thing if you've ever heard of like your brain waves. So what happens is you'll put like this one on 20 and this one on 24, and what happens is your brain cancels it out. It puts you at 4 hertz.
Right.
We're talking about hertz, right?
Okay.
And so your different brain waves are at different, those different hertz frequencies levels, so you can use those to put you in certain states of mind. And if anybody's experienced, there's tons of things on YouTube. Now for binaural beats.
I did that for a little while before I had medical care to help with my PTSD. I did that when I would try to sleep. And I could tell it was making a difference. At the time, I was not really in a place where I felt safe enough to really let go. And sometimes it's like one of those things. Like I have friends that do that Reiki or whatever, and they're like, "You should come do it." And I'm like, I'm not at the point because I like sometimes there's certain things you are gonna have to be open enough to experience and allow it. But the binaural beats really did kind of quiet the noise.
Right.
The static a little bit, and it did help some, so that's pretty cool. And you'll have to write down or text
The
me
solfeggio frequencies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And all that's tons on YouTube. You know what I mean? So you can pay for it, but there's tons of free stuff. Now with the binaural beats, you have to wear headphones because it's important that each ear hears a different thing, or it doesn't really work. Solfeggio, you want your whole body to experience it. So it's kind of two different. Sometimes you'll see people trying to combine it, but you really can't. Because one's for a whole body experience, and that's really what kind of like the Egyptians would do, and then the other one is all about your brain waves. So really,
That's interesting.
Lots of ways you can get there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
that's
arrogant.
important.
The arrogance that a lot of us have to think that we're the most progressed,
Oh.
in society. And I'm just like, have you studied anything of
Oh my
ancient
goodness.
Egypt?
Right.
or Mayan cultures. Like,
So
like
many
we're
things
not-
are discovering. I'm discovering how stupid I really am, or unwisdom, or how much more I have to learn. I guess I would say, right?
Yeah.
Well, do y'all have any final thoughts or anything else?
This has been great.
Awesome.
It's been great.
It's just been, I'm so glad that you had you messaged me on
But you'd messaged me.
I had already
with one
messaged
mind.
you on
Yeah.
TikTok.
Which she's on TikTok. Gotta watch her.
And I guess you don't check your messages as often.
Right.
Because I'll go back and go, look at it. I'm joking. But that's just the way it was.
I love it.
Yeah, and so you sent me the message and
And
it was
boom,
just
here we
aligned,
are. I mean, we basically got this together 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I reached out to Ashe, and she's like, I'm in. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. We were supposed to have Neil Remy here, but Neil said that he had a sore throat. He didn't feel like he could be in it, but we do want possibly for him to be involved so we can have some
Yeah.
music and stuff going on. But we do want to open this up to an audience. That's our idea. But Ashe, how can people contact you? And we would love for you to be, if you want, we would love for you to be a permanent member.
Yeah.
I'm totally game for that.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
Unless I'm like out of town for comedy, I would love that. I'd really enjoy this
Perfect.
kind of exchange of ideas. I have Lauren Harris Childers Comedy on Facebook, which is about to change to Ashe Kennedy Comedy. So this is a terrible advertisement for that. But yeah, that's the part where I really got to get better about my promoting. So the next time that I am here, I will have a
Well, maybe you
a
didn't
better-
promote yourself because you knew you didn't have the right nomenclature. Maybe you knew that it needed to change before you really pushed it out there.
I really do. But this is actually interesting, and you're talking about the spirituality thing, and I cannot believe that I didn't talk about this. Me and my wife, one day I was sitting there, and I thought, what if God's real? He's all loving, all knowing, but not all powerful. Just sitting up there with anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I cannot help you with your brain cancer, but there's your keys. There's your keys. All right there. You got your keys. You're gonna get in
I'm
a bad
there.
accident.
I'm looking at him.
You're gonna get in a bad accident. But like then I started thinking like a God of little things, right? So when something happens, so maybe that's the thing with my name. The thing about with my name is I was gonna change it from the Childers because I just realized that name had passed me. And I needed to change it back to Harris. And I went up to the office and I went to go get my stuff filled out. And she was like, you have to go get your birth certificate, which was at my parents' house. And I left there and I got some information. And I was really upset with my parents about this particular thing. Like, it was information that I would have needed beforehand, and we worked it out and talked it out. But then at that point, I realized I didn't want the name Harris either. And I thought, man, that's the God of little things. To make it that I needed that extra bit of thing because there was a moment where I needed to make a bigger decision about the name that I really needed to fit me. So yeah, I will just randomly throughout the house, and something bad will happen, but it'll turn out to be good. And I'm like, God of little things. And the weird thing that it's done is it's given me the vocabulary to find gratefulness without a preachy way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
And that's the power when you can learn to be thankful for every single thing and give it up that everything is working for your good. If you can get to that mindset where something terrible happens, like, oh, it's working for my good. I can't wait to see the opportunity that opens up for that. If you're a follower of the Bible, then you know that it's a tenfold. So if something bad happens, tenfold opportunities just open up for you. And if you can live in that way,
I've just been even able to not assign anything to it.
Yeah.
When something bad happens, and just like this is.
and that's so like even like in the car business where I am, if I sell a car, people are like, "Oh, you sold a car," and I'm like, "Yeah, it was nice." And then when the day I don't sell the car, I'm like, "Yeah, that's a good day." Like I don't assign, like every moment is good. Every moment is joyful. But no, I don't want to give any moment more credence than the other moment. Right?
And that's been one of the harder things is as I grow as a person, and it's gonna sound so weird, but like days where I have noticeably, it's been a bad day, and I'll sit there and I'll think, this sucks, I don't like this is unpleasant, and it's gonna be okay, like, You know, because I'd always been, you know, the preached almost the toxic positivity that I experienced of like, you know, my mom would always love to do this thing to point out that somebody has it worse than me, and I'm just like, well, now I'm really sensitive and I'm upset about other people that are experiencing pain, you know?
I have my pain and I have their pain.
You know, but it has created this spot where it actually gives me permission to be like, today was bad. It was really bad. I felt a lot of emotional pain. I was in a lot of physical pain, like to be able to acknowledge it and then just know, like, and I guess that's kind of what faith is in a way, is to trust that it's not always going to feel like that.
And it's not defining yourself by that.
Right.
Not defining your worthiness in that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still a beautiful, worthy person, and God adores me. And maybe he did that for a reason. Yeah, it sucked. But maybe he did it for a reason, so I'd gain more wisdom and more power.
I went... one of my best friends, I've been friends with them for like 15 years. We recently just found out we're distant cousins. I went over to their house to help them mow their lawn, right? While their fiance was at work. And I'd been friends with the fiance for like four years. And I go and I mow, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, we have to mow the house next to us too. So it was like 4 lawns, right? I'm like, okay, you know, my knees aren't great. I get out there, the grass is so high, I have to cut it twice.
Jeez.
And I'm like...
So it's 8 lawns.
I'm just like, yeah. So I did that. I did it all in a day, or 2 days. It was 4.5 hours one day, 4 hours the next day. And I went home and I had poison sumac over my entire body. And I just thought, there's a lesson in this. I've overextended myself out of love to someone, and although like they're worthy of that love, like I need to prioritize myself first. And then somebody else who was very close to me ended up with that fiance right after they broke up with my close friend, and in a very kind of odd betrayal of a situation. And I was surprised at how, like, I was upset at first, and then I let it go, and then I thought, that lawn was a really big lesson in all of that. That I overextended myself even out of love in a good situation and hurt myself. And then now looking back on it, I'm like, I'm really mad now. That I went through all that. I still occasionally get spots of poison sumac, but I was like, but man, I needed that lesson. And I feel like I feel like it's all coming together, like that whole feeling. Because I mean, like, what if I do get a shot with comedy and they're like, hey, you know, either you can do this or somebody you really care and love and respect can do this, and you choose. Like, maybe that's a point where I have to be like, I need to choose myself to be able to make things happen. So like I'm waiting, and like you said, I'm excited to see what is this going to bring forth, like this goodness in my life, you know? And I'm just excited that it's coming. And one of the worst things that terrible thing turned out to be one of the best things that could have possibly happened to me.
I love it.
No, sorry. I'm just
I think God adores you. I think God adores you.
Oh, I know he does.
And I think God adores you.
Yes.
And it's all about love. That's just what it's about, isn't it?
Right?
We threw.
My heart.
I love that shirt. I was looking, there's like little writings or something. What does it say?
It's supposed to be French, I think. Who knows? I just had because it says Paris on it somewhere.
Okay.
I just had.
I hope it's a different language, just for the fun.
Right. I have a heart on. Ha ha ha.
I got a friend request from someone had heart on. Heart on.
I got Chinese symbols on my hips because I was a white girl and 18 years old in 2004, so that happened.
That explains that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's on my body, and I'm really scared to ask.
Were they snickering after they did it? Like,
no, this story is I laid back and I was sitting there, and I was in pain. So he's like, "Here, hold on to this," and I picked it up, and it was brass knuckles, and I'm like, "That's kind of weird." And then I looked down. He's like already finished this one. He's halfway through this one, and I opened my hand up, and there is a swastika.
Nice.
On this. Jeez. And then I was just like,
this will bring you comfort.
And I was like,
these have always brought me good luck.
I'm like newly 18 years old, and I'm like, I don't know what to do in this situation. He's halfway through this one. And I was just like, oh, I don't think I need this anymore or whatever. And I leaned back and I look, and over in the corner of the room is a noose. And I was just thinking, I
Oh my
am
goodness.
making poor decisions as an adult.
But at least it only lasts my whole lifetime.
So I really like, some Nazi sympathizer put Chinese symbol tattoos on my body, which is funny in itself.
Right.
But secondly, I'm really terrified to what might be on my body.
Maybe we'll have a show around that about what's on Ashe's body.
There's a misspelled word on my back too.
Let's talk about it. We do really appreciate everybody tuning in and watching us today. We love you with all our heart, and we hope the best for each and every one of you that's watching. And remember, we're looking for a new guest. We're looking for people to do our survey beat, survey monkey.
Well, you'll have to see
Go ahead,
the link.
get the link.
Yeah, and you can win a whole deck of these beautiful cards, still in the wrapper.
We did have somebody ask questions today, and we appreciate that person. And I just want to tell you I love each and every one of you.
Love you too.
I appreciate you, and I hope everything goes well.
Oh.
Thank you. Y'all be kind to one another. See you next time.
Bye.